Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to do a trailer breakdown for the movie Chaos Walking, that is starring Tom Holland, Daisy Ridley, and Mads Mikkelsen, along with Nick Jonas for some reason. But this is a very interesting movie, and before we get into the trailer, when I say interesting, I mean it just in terms of a development slate for this, because this was actually filmed, I believe, before Rise of Skywalker. This may have actually been filmed in 2018, if I remember correctly, but it was filmed a number of years ago, and then it was shelved because there were actually reports coming out about this and screenshots and stuff like that. And this actually finished, like I said, it finished filming and then it was shelved. Kind of similar to the Red Dawn remake they did with Josh Peck and Chris Hemsworth. It was god awful, by the way. But this was, I assume this was shelved because, probably for similar reasons, because they were curious how things were going to work out with Daisy Ridley. She wasn't 100% a hot commodity. Tom Holland was a lot more popular at the time, still is more popular than Daisy Ridley right now because he's going into the Uncharted film, and he's also filming the third Spider-Man outing, the third solo Spider-Man outing for the MCU and Sony. So there's a lot going on there in terms of when they wanted to release this, but I have a funny feeling that's the reason why. This is actually getting released next year, or it's slated for 2021 anyway, like most films at this point. And I'm sure that release date is fluid if it does exist. It is very fluid right now. But let's kind of go into the trailer because this movie has an odd premise that, ironically, we've seen in romantic comedies, which is really weird. So, at the beginning of the trailer, we see Daisy Ridley, who is apparently an astronaut of some sort, and she's flying through space in what looks like this kind of Apollo-like pod, except it's a lot larger. It looks like one of those old re-entry modules from like the Apollo missions that used to crash into the ocean and stuff. So you have that, and then it crashes in this very heavily forested area. I'm assuming it's somewhere in the United States because Tom Holland has an American accent. And Tom Holland winds up finding it, and he finds Daisy Ridley. And then we get our first look at this thing called the noise. And the noise, and this is almost a ridiculous premise. So the noise is a byproduct, and I actually read this a little bit in the description, by the way. They don't really explain this very well in the trailer. But the noise is a byproduct of some form of a chemical that was released into the atmosphere that killed all the women on the planet. And left the men alive. However, the noise itself is actually men's thoughts. So men cannot keep their thoughts to themselves, which means that they can actually, the thoughts actually manifest themselves physically. So even if you have an inner monologue, it is being spoken externally so that people can hear it. And the visual for it is like this weird kind of electric cloud around their head, and there's some like visuals and stuff like that. We see this initially with Tom Holland, and Daisy Ridley has no idea what the hell's going on in this. She kind of looks basically as dumbfounded as she usually does in the Star Wars movies. And also she's wearing a god awful blonde wig. That thing looks horrifying. So Tom Holland is basically this guy. He's in this community that's run by Mads Mikkelsen, and Nick Jonas apparently is Mads Mikkelsen's son in the movie. Go figure there. But basically, Mads Mikkelsen's the leader, and he wants Daisy Ridley for some reason. So Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley decide to make a run for it. There's some kind of romantic thing there where he wants to protect her because, again, there's no females left on the planet. This is the only shot he's ever going to have to get laid, apparently, in this universe. But there's more sinister things around, and basically through the middle part of the trailer is after they explain what the noise actually is and what it does, there's a few little scenes. It goes through a few scenes of kind of them. It's mostly just them walking through the forest, and Tom Holland doesn't trust her because he can't read her thoughts, which again that kind of makes sense in this kind of a universe. And then towards the middle section, there's this odd scene. So apparently animals, you can also read animal thoughts that way, which again, I don't understand how that actually works. I mean, do you just hear more growling from a dog because its brain is growling? I don't even understand how that works. But Tom Holland just keeps. There's a scene where Nick Jonas basically just kind of says like, "Check yourself," and then Tom Holland just keeps thinking, "Snake, snake, 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 snake," and then suddenly a snake appears and freaks the fuck out of Nick Jonas. Now, I don't know if that was some kind of a mental manifestation, because again, we do see a little bit where they can kind of almost project images from their brains, which I could understand how that would get really weird really fast. But maybe he projected the snake image from his brain in order to scare the horse that Nick Jonas was on. I assume that's what it is. Even so, that's kind of an interesting power to have, to be able to actually project images from your mind in addition to speech. Now, the other thing that I don't really get about this universe is the idea of, okay, how long has this actually been like this? Because I'm not sure how long it's been since all the women have died. Basically, they don't really clarify that in the trailer. They just state that all the women on the planet are dead. Now, it may be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. We can see that apparently, like I said, Nick Jonas's character is supposed to be Mads Mikkelsen's son in the film, and he appears to be somewhere around Tom Holland's age, which I project is probably somewhere around the 16 to 20 range. That could just be the age of the actor as well, but if it's that, then we could assume that it's at least that amount. At the very most, it's that amount of time. So, in that amount of time, you're telling me that people haven't adapted to the point where they've learned somewhat to control their thoughts. And again, I'm aware Tom Holland's supposed to be playing a young man, probably a teenager, who's probably not in well control of his emotions. So that kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I feel like Mads Mikkelsen is somebody who's probably in control of his thoughts and other people. So I feel like it's kind of that problem that you have in Ghostbusters, where Ray thinks of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's like, if they can clear their minds for like 5 seconds, I understand that normal people probably could. Also, how does that work with sleep? I figured that would be kind of weird with your subconscious, like talking through your brain. That would be kind of strange, but. Also, sex would be really weird. But the point is that after you get past the snake scene, then you just keep going into all these kind of scenes where it's like Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley semi-bonding / running for their lives. There's one small scene we see of what looks like a creature, but you can't really tell what it is. Its back is turned. It could be a mental projection. I'm not 100% sure. They also, Mads Mikkelsen has some voiceover during the trailer as well. At one point, he says that if the boy discovers the power, something or other. That's also followed, or actually during that monologue is also a scene where Tom Holland appears to be overwhelmed by the noise. He's like grabbing his head and stuff like that, and it's all around him. So maybe there's something to do with that where they can harness that to an extent. I have no idea if that's maybe something for this. Again, this is based off of the first in a series of novels. I have not read the novel, so I don't know exactly that much about the universe. If anybody in the comments does, you can feel free to put it there. And then at the end of the trailer is where we kind of get this odd little scene, and that's where Mads Mikkelsen, or not Mads Mikkelsen, Tom Holland is kind of hiding in the bushes with Daisy Ridley from, I presume, the creature that we saw like a little snippet of in a couple scenes before that, and he's trying to get control of his thoughts, and he keeps saying, "Fight, fight, be a man, fight, fight," and it's like. No, if I saw a monster in the woods, that probably wouldn't be my first thought. My first thought would probably be, run the fuck away. If it can rip you limb from limb, which it appears somewhat that it can, or at least that it can beat the living crap out of you, you probably don't want to stick around, or at least you want to try and get a weapon. Something to use against it. A sharpened stick, anything, a rock. Smash it in the head, do something. You don't want to just hide there and sit there while your brain is talking for you. That's just kind of stupid. As Daisy Ridley is telling him to basically shut the fuck up. Now, like I said, the premise of this, I've seen it in romantic comedies before. It's kind of like What Women Want, or I think they did a sequel to it, like What Men Want, which was a Chappelle Show joke at one point. But I've seen that type of a trope played out in a comedic sense, so maybe maybe that's why I think this is kind of amusingly dumb. But again, it's a young adult novel. A lot of those are very, very hit and miss. They're aimed at a specific crowd. Again, young adults, teenagers. So it kind of makes sense why the motivations and stuff are very teenagey and angsty. Again, not my thing, but I understand why it's there. The premise seems a little too much. It actually reminds me a little bit of After Earth because like it seems like okay, there's a lot of backstory here that we're not getting, and I don't feel like it's going to ever be explained because I feel like because it's a series of books, they were probably when they were making this, maybe they were banking on having sequels. I don't know if that's going to be the case because again, this movie was made and shelved and then released several years later, which is usually not a good sign for a film, and it usually doesn't mean that a studio has any faith in it. So that's just kind of my opinion on the trailer. But as usual, I'm going to link the trailer in the description below. So if you guys want to go see it, you can. And I want to know what your opinion is. Are you familiar with the source material for this? Have you seen the trailer? Do you like the trailer? Do you think that the trailer kind of accurately represents the book in some sense, or at least in spirit, it represents it? As usual, put your thoughts below. I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?